Hello and welcome to Canadian Footy Fan Channel, content for fans, by fans. I am your host, Chris Talks Footy, and today I'm bringing you Canadian Footy Assembly, episode number 9, Whitecaps, Winter. But I'm not doing it alone. I am joined by Paul, and first time to the channel for Felipe. How are we all doing this evening, gentlemen?
Doing pretty good.
Pretty
Can't
good.
complain. Yeah.
That's good to hear. Everybody's social links are in the description below, so make sure you check it out. And a reminder to show your support by smashing the subscribe and the like buttons. But without further ado, let's kick this off. So first off, we're going to start off with our main segment for this evening, and that is Whitecaps Winner, where we'll be doing a off-season review of the Vancouver Whitecaps off-season so far. And to start us off, I'll go through a breakdown on some of the transfers that have happened. And I'll start off with the outs. So on the outs, we have goalkeeper Cody Cropper. He's a free agent. Derek Cornelius obviously moved to Malmo. Florin Youngworth has retired. Eric Adoy went to Club Atletico Belgrano. Right back Marcus Gaudinho joined Dominic Sotor at Corona Calce. Jake Nowitzki went to new team St. Louis City. Leonard Owusu is a free agent, as well as Janio Bacal. Chiao Alexander has gone to Fortaleza, I believe that is, in Brazil. Michael Baldissimo has gone to San Jose Earthquake. Toe St. Ricketts has obviously retired. And then Lucas Cavallini has gone to Xolos, which we'll discuss a little bit later on. And then on the ends, officially on the inside, we have Mateus Laborda coming in from Nacional. And then you've got Karifa Yao as well coming in from Montreal. Both are center backs. Vancouver drafted JC Nganda and Levante Johnson. And then a couple of transfers that haven't been officially announced yet, but they seem to have gone through. So that is goalkeeper Yohei Takaoka from Yokohama Marinos, and then striker Sergio Cordova, who's coming in from Augsburg in Germany. So we brought in Felipe as our Vancouver specialist for today, and he's going to help us go through these transfers and some other things that Vancouver can do, as well as their overall off-season. So Felipe, if you want to just tell me, what do you think of Vancouver's off-season so far?
Yeah, I mean it's been a bit of an up and down. I think Vancouver isn't usually a team that likes to do big deals early, and then we got the news of the signing of Mateus Laborda like in early January, and we, for a lot of fans, it's like, okay, this is setting a new precedent, and we were hoping that would continue and the signings would kind of roll in, but then we had a few weeks where it was nothing really. There were some links. I mean, we were linked to Tai Baribo, who is the Israeli striker from Wolfsberger. We even faced them in the preseason, hoping to maybe see how he was, and he scored. But apparently Wolfsberger weren't interested in selling and rejected a bid. We also trained with Salif Sane, which would have been incredible had it been Salif Sane from a few years ago, the experienced Senegalese center back. But obviously he was just there to train and get better after an injury spell, and he knows Axel Schuster from their time in Schalke. And so it felt like we were sort of getting into February, and we still had the holes that were left, with Cavallini leaving on a free, and we really didn't replace Maxime Crepeau when he left for LAFC. Thomas Hassal had to take up the role, and he had a bit of an up and down season as well. And so I know I was worried, and a lot of fans on social media were worried. But then, and literally the last week or so, we got two deals just breaking through, one right after the other, of the potential signing of Sergio Cordova and of Yohei Takaoka. And I know the Cordova deal is a bit of people have had mixed reactions to, but he had a pretty good season last season for RSL. He had 11 goals and 1 assist. From what I saw, he was a bit of a mixed bag striker. Sometimes he misses like really easy opportunities, and sometimes he'll score goals from out of nothing. And then Takaoka, I think, is probably, I would say, even more important than the DP striker, is because, I mean, he's in the J League. He was named the best keeper of the season. He was in the best 11. And so, I mean, to have a keeper like that come in, and people already are saying he's too short, he's 5'11". But I mean, he's shown that if he's in the best 11, it shows that even with the fact that he might not be the tallest of goalkeepers, he's still quite talented. And from videos and stuff I've seen, he's very, very agile and acrobatic, even to make up for it.
Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of Ochoa from Mexico, a bit of a shorter keeper, but very athletic, and able to get to his sides very quickly. Very quick on his feet.
Yeah, and it does seem like he would be the number one if he would come in, and I think that would be something that would be assured. Like, well, it would assure us as fans knowing that we have a keeper of that quality there. So I think now, given that these deals go through, this offseason takes a dramatic spike of optimism for many Whitecaps fans.
Yeah, like I think Vancouver has definitely been building a side for a number of seasons now. Like you brought in Gressel partway through last year, I believe. And then you also brought in, you've had Kubas for... When did you bring in Kubas? Has he been there
the summer as
well? So like you've made some signings that as a TFC fan, I'm very, very jealous of, like especially the signing of Laborda. As TFC fans, we've needed at least 2 center backs and we're still in need of 1. I was very, very jealous of that signing. And then looking into Yohei Takaoka, like I try not to just look at one season. So looking at the past 4 or 5 seasons in the J League, he's definitely been maybe a top 5 keeper in the J League. And he's still, I believe he's 27. So there's still room for a goalkeeper at that age. He has time to still develop, in my opinion. So I think with him, you're getting at least an above average keeper. Maybe he can turn into one of the elite keepers in MLS. We'll have to wait and see. But he's definitely somebody who I think he won't be an average or below, I don't feel anyways. But as you mentioned, the Cordova signing, obviously with it was with RSL last season, right?
With Real Salt Lake.
He had a good season, but obviously with his time at Augsburg, and he also had a loan, I believe. His goal, like his output, and I know the be all and end all isn't always output, but when you're spending DP money, even though we know Cordova could potentially be moved to a TAM player in the future, when you're signing a DP striker, you're really looking at the player to put up massive output. And as you've mentioned, he might be a bit of a hit or miss striker, and you guys had that with Cavallini in the past. Obviously with Cavallini, it's not just him being hit or miss, but it's obviously his disciplinary issues that you've also got to be concerned about. That obviously we're hoping Cordova, well, as a TFC fan, it doesn't bother me, but as Vancouver fans, I'm sure you guys are wanting Cordova to not replicate what Cavallini has done with his discipline record. But I just don't know what you're going to get from Cordova, to be honest. It could be a short-term fix for now, or maybe if he plays well, it can be a long-term fix. It'll be interesting to see. I'll come back to you, Felipe. What more moves does Vancouver Whitecaps need to make? And do you see any additional players leaving before the start of the season?
I mean, honestly, if you look at the squad and you look at the quality of the squad, I don't see many more positions that we can realistically improve on. I mean, Vanny has sort of come out and said that he wants to, surprise, tinker a bit with players' positionings. And try to go to a bit more centrally in the midfield, having 3 in the midfield, and putting Gressel and Schopf as 8s. and which is a bit weird seeing how good Gressel is as a wingback.
Yeah.
How good his crosses is. I mean, you saw that in the first game of the United States where he started his assist. And so seeing him as an 8, I know he used to play that, but I don't know if we can get the same amount of service and quality that we're used to with Gressel in that position. But if he is that 8, then we have, I think, pretty decent depth in the midfield. I would say the only position that maybe we could look towards, and maybe that if we buy down Cordova's DP deal and have another DP spot, having a more attacking-minded winger to play off of Cordova, that might be useful, given that, Dahome before was playing as a wing back. He didn't really do well. Now he's playing more attacking, but it's still yet to see if he can produce the kind of numbers that we need. Deber Casedo was really good before his injury, but we have to see how he comes back from that injury. So I think maybe a position like a wide forward position can be somewhere where we can have a bit more joy, another goal scoring option, so the goal scoring doesn't fall firmly on the shoulders of Cordova. I think that might be useful. But honestly, aside from that, I think we're pretty good across the board, especially now that youth are coming in, are kind of showing that they have some quality. I mean, in this preseason, probably the player of the preseason has been Ali Ahmed, who is the left back who came from the MLS Next Pro team.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, the little bits that we've been able to see, he's been superb. So maybe he can come in and fight for that left wing back position with Luis Martins and Christian Gutierrez. So honestly, I think maybe only that position, but now that we've assured the defense, we got a good goalkeeper, and we have potentially a decent striker, I don't think there's too much more. And in the same sense, I don't think we're going to let too many players go. I think we had sort of the exodus at the beginning with all of those players. I mean,
as I said earlier, there's a fair number that have left.
Exactly. And, there was some questions up in the air, in late last year of like what was going to happen with Derek Cornelius, with Kai Alexandre. But now that that's done and dusted, and we have let go what we need to let go, I honestly think that, bar any some crazy bid coming in for somebody like Vite, I don't think we're going to have any more big outgoings. Maybe developmental loans for some of the young guys, but I think beyond that, nothing else.
So going off what Felipe is saying, you say pretty much that most of Vancouver's work has been done. Obviously, Paul, as a TFC fan, we know our club still has some work to do.
Right, definitely.
So as a rival, how concerned are you of Vancouver right now?
I'll be honest, I'm not necessarily, and not too concerned, but I think other pundits are not too concerned, Felipe, right now. I think, you know what, though, and to be honest, I know there's surprise. Last year, they were also a surprise, right? No one expected them to place where they did last year. But I think Will Forbes currently has them ranked 9th in his preseason ranking right now. So I think it's a matter of time to see all these new players that they could gel, because there is so much in and out. For me, I want to see, I think even before we had a conversation, another episode, where we spoke about because there hasn't been enough time for Vancouver necessary to gel and so many in and out, we weren't too sure how the consistency would necessarily be for Vancouver as they start out the gate. And we always know starting out the gate early in MLS is very, very important. So that's probably the only reason, not necessarily the players, because you actually broke it down really well from the back to the front. There is a level of a level of where you could see the holes being filled, and not just looking for a DP player, but looking to fill the holes, especially in MLS. That's very important. Being able to know what your needs are and being able to fill those holes with players that understand the league. So I think that is definitely a job that you guys have done very well. But still, I'm not sure. I want to see you guys out the gate to see how you play. Unfortunately, preseason, I think most MLS teams, for some crazy
the
reason,
cone
like
of silence preseason. Yeah,
it's crazy to me. And it's funny because actually Philly played, and they actually had their lineup and their formation. And I saw Matt was actually saying, you know what, the soccer gods are gonna bless you, because it's everything's a secret. So you don't even. It's so hard to even say now. Well, how well are they playing? Are they gelling together? Are they doing that? So just unfortunately, because I'm not able to see that right now, I'm going to say not necessarily too worried as yet.
Yeah, well, they are reigning Canadian champions. Obviously, they won 2022 Canadian Championship. So, and that was not something I was expecting last season. I
Not at
definitely
all.
thought it was CF Montreal and Toronto FC's trophy to lose.
Right.
And going off Vancouver's last couple of runs in the tournament, I was kind of hoping for the same, where Canadian Premier League gives them the work a little bit. So they broke that voodoo last year, and then they went on to win it. So definitely good for them. And they hadn't won the trophy since 2015 prior to that, I believe. So I think it was important for their fan base to actually win something, and help the fan base maybe be a little bit more positive about the team. As we know, as I was a TFC fan from the moment I immigrated to Canada, so in 2010. So I did miss the first couple of years, but from 2010 to 2015, just being brutal in the league. And at that point, the Canadian Championship really wasn't what it is necessarily with the three MLS clubs. So I know how difficult it is to go on, and it just feels like you're in this hopeless situation where you're not making the playoffs and you're not necessarily winning anything. So I think there was definitely a boost for the club and the club, the players, and the fan base to help them for this season upcoming, to help them push forward to reach hopefully some higher goals. And I think that's where we'll go to next. So Felipe, what is your goal? What is the expectations for Vancouver? Are there some minimum expectations where if those aren't met, some heads are going to roll? Do you think now with the success, the steps taken to move forward, as well as winning the Canadian Championship last season, do you think we need to put some pressure on Vancouver to achieve something this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think especially with some of the signings that we've had, like okay, last season, like I said, we never really replaced Kripo, and we didn't really bring in a center back that played as well as Godoy did on his best day, and so it kind of felt like last season was sort of like a forgettable one. And they said off the beginning the expectation was to win a trophy, and so we won the trophy, and it seemed that was sort of the expectation met. But now the expectation is, okay, we want to go for that playoff spot. And I really think there isn't much excuse now that Whitecaps can have, now that we have those positions covered. We have on paper a really good goalie. We have a new striker that has experience in the MLS and has scored double digits. We have a bunch of players fit again. A couple of the players that we brought in last summer have had time in preseason to integrate properly and stuff like that. So honestly, I mean, my expectation is that my very cautious expectation is clinching playoffs. And then my hopeful expectation is that we'll finish fourth in the West, and then hopefully get past the first round. I don't know if we are really prepared unless Sartini, Vanny has something cooking up at BC Place. I don't know if we are still at that level to be able to compete with like the Philadelphia Unions, the LAFCs, and stuff like that. But I do think that it's definitely higher, the expectations this season than last. And if it's not met, then I mean, it's the classic tale is, how long can a coach stay in the hot seat until change has to occur? And as much as I like Sartini, and I know that he's very, very intelligent, and he loves to go into deep tactics and data, and he loves to nitpick and stuff like that, in the same sort of way, as Graham Potter did at Brighton, where he would always change formation and change things around. So I know that he's like a student of the game, but I know they're not doing great right now. But if Sartini can't get the results, then it doesn't matter how intelligent and smart he may be with tactics. like you said, heads will start to roll, and then it's gonna unfortunately have to be find a new coach, and then that's the thing I dread, is having to find a new coach, and then the cycle has to restart, and the coach comes in with a bunch of players, and then who's leaving, who's staying, and all of that. So I think this might be a make or break season for the Whitecaps for at least the foreseeable future.
And Felipe, I was going to actually, so you kind of touch on, it's funny, I had that question in the back of my mind, and when you said Graham Potter, I also thought about it. If Sartini could survive, because I'm noticing, I find that a lot of coaches that are tacticians that know this game, a lot of times players don't always resonate with them. And I'm noticing that to side off with Chelsea, right? Like Graham Potter, a lot of people say, very smart. What he did with Brighton was amazing. But then you have superstar players who sometimes feel like, hey, we know more than you, right? And so do you think he's able to connect? He does have that flamboyant type of personality.
And he has the connection with the fans for sure, and the city. But I guess what Paul's saying, like, can he communicate what he needs to communicate with the players?
Right.
I think he can. I think what I've seen, I mean, obviously we see the clips from social media, and of course I'm not going to put any negative clips of Sartini with the players, but you do see the clips that come out and them joking around, and you hear him on podcasts and engage with the city a lot, and it feels like it would be hard for the players not to necessarily be aligned with him. I mean, he's not like you said, the tacticians sometimes struggle with this. That's the difference between somebody like, to use Premier League examples again, Graham Potter, and like a Jurgen Klopp, where he's
Right.
a man manager, and his players will literally like bleed for him.
Well, maybe
And
not
so
so
I
much
think,
now.
well, yeah, I don't know about anymore. But it does feel like you have to find a balance from that. And I think
Right.
Sartini is trying to find that balance, because I think maybe last season playing some players out of position, especially Christian Dajome, playing him at a wing back when he's an
Right.
attacking player, kind of boggled the mind, and I'm sure he wasn't super happy with it. So I think he sort of learned, taken last year to sort of learn more about how he can manage his players. And if you look at our signings, these DP signings that we have, none are, super stars with coming in with big egos, as like, I would imagine that he would struggle if somebody on the level of like Lorenzo Insigne would come into the Whitecaps, and there it's like, okay, how can you measure up to a like Italian icon who's played in Europe, or something around the likes of that. But I think because of the squad that we have, there's no big names. Everyone's sort of starting to unify and gel together. I think as long as he doesn't try to nitpick too much, that I know that he tried to do last season, we would change formations from 4-4-2 to a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 3-5-2, and it was like a game. Like, what formation are we going to have today? As long as he can get some consistency with the players, and the players understand what their role is in the club, I think he should be fine.
Right. Okay. Good answer. Very well.
Yeah. Very insightful there.
Yes, for sure.
But I'll come. So, Paul, with what Felipe is saying with the expectations, obviously with TFC, we have some similar expectations where obviously if we don't make the playoffs, obviously heads are going to roll for sure.
Right.
And I think maybe on our end of it may be even louder than it is on Vancouver, because I think Vanni Sartini has some good grace with the city and with the fans, where Bo Manning and Bob Bradley, I don't think they have that with TFC. So I wonder if, how do I word this question? Do you think it's possible where Sartini keeps his job if Vancouver doesn't make the playoffs? Can you see that happening, Paul?
Yeah, I could actually, just in how we're speaking, and the reason why I asked the question earlier is because, as we said, he has a connection with the fans. The fans love him. You can just see, and he has that infectious personality where, like, it's hard to not like him. But once again, we're not football or soccer players, and they might have a different. playing professionally with the team. So sometimes certain things might rub them, especially on a daily basis. Fans, we're on the outside. We're not actually playing. Even if we have played the sport, we're not physically playing with the team right now. So for me, I think he does have that grace. And I think it is fair to give him that opportunity, to be honest with you, to really just carry out, to continue, especially with a lot of the movement that Vancouver had. I think it is a good opportunity to give him, especially like last season where they started off bad but ended off pretty well. And I think there was a lot of disconnect among the players. Like even Cavallini, who you weren't even too sure if he was playing, he wasn't, he was injured. Like he was just like all over the place. So you having to deal with that and just other players having to deal with it. I think he handled it really well. And he got the players, from what I saw from the outside looking in, still got the players to rally, down the stretch. So I think I think they should give him, and I think he does have the grace, unless they bomb.
Yeah.
So if they bottom
out,
sure.
yes.
Right, then for sure.
But if it's by 3 points or last day kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. But I found it interesting that Will Forbes had them ninth. But once again, I think people are just kind of skeptical because once again, now that with MLS, you want to hear the big names and you want to, see, and you're not too Cordova, you're not too sure about him as a striker. They do need a striker, but you're not too sure. Can Ben White, can he replicate? So I guess it's all these question marks still, as much as it sounds weird because I heard you saying something, Felipe, and it might sound ambiguous. As much as there was a lot of in and out, there's still a bit of continuity.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that sounds ambiguous and odd to say, well, hey, there was all this exodus, but then there's still continuity. So you kind of see like there is a core group of people that I think if you have those guys that, their voice is loud enough, I think they can be able to kind of gel together and make some kind of noise, but it's at least the playoffs.
Okay. Felipe, I'm going to come to you with, I think I've got 2 more questions. And the first one is Ryan Gold. Now, obviously, he came into MLS and he hit the ground running, had an exceptional introduction to MLS last season. And obviously, we are aware of the struggles he had in Europe, and he moved to various different clubs. He moved to Portugal, and he just couldn't find that spot. And he seems to have found that in Vancouver. Do you think he can push to be in the MVP conversation for next season?
I mean, on just pure technical ability, I don't see why not. I mean, we've seen how he is. Like, the reason why he was called, the Scottish Messi. Like a decade ago, is because of his technical ability. Obviously, now the moniker is pretty funny, but he still has that ability that he's always had through his career, and he's very intelligent. I think it's always been about consistency and output. And I think last season he was another sort of maybe victim of Sartini's nitpicking and stuff like that, because I've always seen him as somebody who plays best on the wing. He's not a very much like a proper 10 that can stay in, because he's sort of, he doesn't have the physicality for it, and especially in the MLS, it's quite a physical league at times. I've seen that, like, especially in that 3-game stretch where we almost clinched playoffs. There, he pushed to the left and had so much more success whipping balls in and dictating play, weaving in and out throughout the middle. And especially since he had Pedro Ite, who I think was what released him as a more traditional playmaker. He likes to stay in the middle. He's nifty enough to go through players and arrive into the box late. I think those two together complement each other really well. And so I think Ryan Gold, if this season, if Cordova can be somebody who can receive these his balls and his crosses and head into the back of the net, or finish in any way, I think that Gold can put up, I'm not saying like 25 or 30 assists, but if he puts up, in the late teens of assists and not just a few, and can push Vancouver to the playoffs and to a conference final, maybe. But I think it would take a bit to get him to that point. But I don't think that he is missing the technical aspects and to be that caliber, because we've seen it even throughout his career in little glimpses at Sporting in Scotland.
Yep.
He's shown that he can ball, he can play.
He just needed a home, and it seems like Vancouver is that place. And I know there has been the discussions of him becoming a Canadian citizen eventually.
I was going to say,
and if he wants to pursue that, which he does seem interested, at least from what he's saying, I'll definitely be down for that and be in his corner if he were to decide to go 100%. That route. Although it'll be a couple more years until he'll be able to do so. The last question I have, and regardless of how Cordova performs, do you think the Vancouver fan base needs to put pressure on ownership and management to buy down Cordova's deal into a TAM and get that DP in the summer?
I definitely think so. I mean, it also all depends on how he starts. Mm-hmm. I mean, he starts, like if he hits the ground running, and let's say in the first 13 games gets 7 or 8 goals, and just it seems like he's in the form of his life, then maybe that's not the pressure that we are putting. But if he takes some time to get into it, he only scores maybe 3 or 4 goals from here until the summer, and it seems like we're still struggling for that for output, then I would say definitely, especially since Vancouver fans have been asking for a lot in these last few years, and a lot has not been delivered. We've seen Toronto bring in a lot of these big star names, and same with even Montreal. Like you see, Drogba came in a few years ago. For you guys, Insigne, and even before that, you had names like Defoe, Julio Cesar, like these like names that just like you're like, oh, I know who that is.
Yeah.
And then you think of the Whitecaps, and you're like, we haven't had a proper superstar since, I guess, Camilo Sanvezzo, and that did not end well for the Whitecaps after his incredible season. So I think the fans are starting to get a little tired of seeing our Eastern rivals just bring in these big names and being able to push for these titles and stuff like that, where I think that at this point, if Cordova doesn't necessarily work out as we're hoping it does, then I think fans are going to be demanding finally bring somebody in that can put butts in seats, can fill out our beautiful stadium, because it feels like we have this wonderful stadium in this beautiful city, and then a team that doesn't bring in as much excitement as it seems like Toronto FC does for Toronto and CF Montreal does for Montreal. So I think fans are biting their tongue right now, just waiting to see. But if it doesn't work out, then the dogs are out.
Yeah, I think at times as a rival fan, it's been difficult to see what Vancouver is trying to be. Are they trying to be a development club? Are they trying to be, as your management a couple of years put out there, they wanted to be the Athletic Bilbao of Canada, which I find hilarious because last season you guys played the least amount of Canadians out of every single professional side in Canada. But regardless of what Vancouver decides, you can always try to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And I think Vancouver, their management and ownership has not delivered that. So I, even as a rival, and I know I have beef with some Vancouver fans, I generally want you guys to do well because you guys do have Canadians and you have Canadians coming through your academy. So I want you guys to be the best versions of yourself. And maybe we meet in an MLS Cup final and we just whip your butts at that point. But then that's okay. You guys have made a final. But you know, this off season has been one of the very few off seasons where I've looked in Vancouver and I've said, you know what? I know what they're trying to do, and I can see progression, and it's not utter chaos as it has been at times or underwhelming at times. Obviously, I think guys could have maybe gotten a better striker, but we'll see how that plays out for sure. And as you mentioned, Felipe, if it doesn't work out, you do have the option of the DP of bringing in either somebody to help Cordova or somebody to just outright replace him in the starting lineup.
Right.
I don't know if you guys have anything else to say regarding Vancouver.
No.
Okay, I think we can move on to our next segment, which is Canada Soccer 5 headlines. So first off, we're gonna start off with something that caused panic from coast to coast and quite the reaction on social media. So I'm gonna come to Paul. And Paul, what is your thoughts on John Herdman becoming the New Zealand men's national team head coach, according to Twitter?
You know, I'll be honest with you, and I was watching One Soccer, and Andy Pichula was asking the panel if they have more questions than answers. And I'll be honest with you, as much as he came up with that statement, I still have more questions than answers. Because for me, okay, the newspaper, he didn't deny that he didn't have an interview with New Zealand. He just said offers came to him. So the wording was very, very smart. And then Canada Soccer saying they were blindsided. I'm like, were you really blindsided? What were you blindsided by? Were you blindsided by that the newspaper came out and said something? Or were you blindsided that you didn't know at all that his agent, most likely probably his agent, was out there looking? So for me, at first when I heard the news, to be honest with you, I was like, whoa, especially coming from New Zealand and then understanding the CSA that we have. As I said, if it was a different federation, I would have been like, okay, whatever, right? But knowing that, Nick came out and said that we're going to be in negotiation contracts, for a new contract for him and Bev. So even in that, I was kind of like, is it a negotiation tactic? There was a lot of things going through my head. And still, to be honest with you, that is still going through my head because I'm like, it doesn't make sense that New Zealand will come out and say he had an interview. And I don't think they're lying. Why would they lie that he had an interview?
Yeah.
Right? To me, that just doesn't make any sense that they would come out and create this whole narrative. They don't need to. It's not like club football, right? Club football, I can understand maybe, you're looking for a particular manager, so you're trying to get, no, that's not even
trying
necessary.
To disrupt his employment.
Yeah, so I don't even think they needed to. So for me, I feel like Herdman, to be honest with you, I personally think what he wants from Canada Soccer, they're not giving him, and they're going to come up with we don't have the money, whatever. But he's been doing a lot of work and hitting the ground. And I think there's a lot of things that he has not come out and said that he's had to deal with. I think there's some things that you've kind of heard him speak in with English podcasts, but I think there's other things that he has not come out and said. And I think some of it has translated in the reason why the players were the way they were. And I'll be honest and sorry, just to sidetrack a bit, that's why I sided with the players. It wasn't necessarily that I agreed totally with the players, but I knew some of the players' frustration was also coming from Herdman.
Yeah.
And Herdman could, as a leader, he couldn't necessarily come out. He had to really focus on getting his troops ready for the World Cup. But I think some of the older heads, like Atiba, that's been around a lot, saw things that even if Herdman didn't actually say it, he saw it and knew what was going on. So for me, that's why I'm still kind of antsy. As much as I think he is going to lead them, I still think Canada Soccer needs to give him a better contract. Let's pay the man. I think they need to do that wherever, how. And for all the people on Twitter, sorry for my rant, but for all the people on Twitter that are talking about, oh, you know what? Oh, yeah, get rid of Herdman. Yeah, he's no good. Number one, who are you going to bring in? Funny enough, American, I forgot the reporter, Stu Holden, I think his name is, was like, oh, yeah, I think they could do better. Guys, don't fall. And I'm not speaking to our panel because I know you guys are smart. I'm talking about the Twitter heads. Don't be fooled. States, they actually, I've heard a lot of state pundits speak highly of Herdman. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the World Cup, he made some mistakes. Of course, it's his first men's World Cup. So, of course, there are going to be some mistakes that he would have made along the way. But I think he's a person that will definitely learn. But they want Herdman. I'm not saying he's a number one candidate, but I can guarantee you if they could scoop him up, they would. So for
they
all
would
the
take
people
him
like,
over Berhalter for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So for them to
100%.
be like, oh yeah, I think Canada could do better. Better how? Who?
Yeah.
Who is out there? Carlo Ancelotti?
Guys, yeah, Carlo Ancelotti.
Carlo.
He's handing in his resignation to Real Madrid tomorrow, and he's
coming back to his Vancouver house.
I think. Yeah.
Sorry, it's just so interesting to me because I've seen people on Twitter break down. Oh, he did this. We could do better. These are people that have just start watching Canada at the World Cup level. Have you been watching from the ground zero when they were playing? And I saw many times where we struggle to beat Haiti. And I'm even talking about before Herdman, the first Gold Cup. I've seen us struggle against a lot of these countries. I've seen it, and just to see the mindset alone of how he's changed it, you could argue his tactics. I think every coach, every manager, even the best of them, you could always you could nitpick and be like, oh, you should have done this tactic, or you should have done this. They have less time on the world stage. It's much easier from a club level, from week to week. The World Cup stage, they don't have much time to prepare. And in fairness to Herdman, he didn't have a lot of time to prepare with all the chaos that was happening behind the scenes. So sorry, that's my rant. It's so frustrating. Like, everybody, get rid of Herdman. Oh, I don't think he's good enough. Bro, guys, have you been watching? Yeah. Did you watch when we got pounded by Honduras 8-1 when we had Stephen Hart? And no disrespect to Stephen Hart. I still like him. But I'm saying, did you see when we had, my gosh, what's his name after that came out to Stephen Hart? When we're playing defensive, like, guys, like, from Brano, like, Zambrano, like, guys, just think about the coach. Yeah, think about the coaches we've had along the way to Herdman, night and day. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just had to. It's so frustrating. It really is.
Yeah, like Zambrano had agendas against certain players. Like even Jonathan Osorio at that time was one of the best Canadian players out there. Yes. And no offense to our friends in Vancouver, but he was picking Russell Tybert over him, which made no sense whatsoever. And I think we can settle that now. Like obviously Jonathan Osorio is a much better player than Russell Tybert. Russell Tybert, good MLS squad player, does a role. But like there's levels to these things.
Right.
But yeah, people forget like international management isn't all that, and it's not what managers aspire to be. Like, look at England. They've got Gareth Southgate. Gareth Southgate didn't play Marcus Rashford at the World Cup except when he rotated his team. Look at the form Marcus Rashford is on right now. Like, and then look at Greg Berhalter. Look at how he dealt with the what's his name?
Girona.
Yeah, Girona issue, like, and all that debacle, and like of England, like they got Southgate, and England, like they could get even way better managers than Canada can get, and even the US. Like I know we don't like to admit it, but the US program is much more. If I was a manager and I had between Canada and the United States, I'm going to the United States. Their player pool is much bigger than ours. Yes, they got the money.
A lot more resources.
A lot more resources. Yes, the Canadian talent at the top end of it, yes, I think is better. But like when we take into account the squad of like 45 players that are, or you wrote in and out of your national team squads, theirs is much better than ours, in my opinion, overall. No, and they got Greg Berhalter, and 100% I wouldn't take Greg Berhalter to replace John Herdman because I know what Greg Berhalter is like. He's stubborn. Which, yes, maybe John Herdman is stubborn at times, and he was maybe a little bit stubborn at the World Cup to our own detriment. But John Herdman in World Cup qualifying did show that he is willing to change when he needs to. Unfortunately, he didn't show that at the World Cup, unfortunately. But I'll come to you, Felipe. Do you... like, were you shocked that it was like the New Zealand job? Like, we had heard rumors that there was John Herdman, there was some clubs that were in the Championship in England that were interested in John Herdman. We never found out which clubs exactly, unfortunately. And there were rumors that there were other national teams interested in John Herdman as well after the World Cup. Were you a bit shocked that it was New Zealand that came out with this report?
I mean, yeah. I mean, especially like given what the rumors were earlier, you see Herdman, and again, like you said, it's hard to see with national teams and national team managers how good they can be in and out day to day. Like at a club level, it's a completely different ballgame.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so it would be it's kind of hard to see how Herdman would do at championship level, like if he were to go to the championship or at club level. But I think given what he did with Canada and how we saw how he took a Canada team that was still having their licking their wounds from that bashing against Honduras and brought them to this level. I think he has earned himself, at least to have his name in the hat for like high championship clubs, potentially even very like low Premier League or in other places in Europe as well. So when the New Zealand news came through, I was very surprised, and I immediately thought it was, is this a tactical ploy a bit? Because I know Herdman earlier when he was in the women's job had something like this happen as well around contract negotiation times. There was links to him leaving, and then it seemed like this is what he had to do to get Canada Soccer to listen, which shows like a different side of Herdman that we might not like, but I think also shows even more what a manager has to do to get the pay that he deserves from Canada Soccer.
Yeah.
And so much drama and so much bad press has come through in Canada Soccer in recent years, and it's genuinely worrying from like a Canadian soccer fan, because right now the crop of players that we have, the caliber, the talent, it seems like it's the best. This is the golden generation, at least in recent memory. I feel bad for my favorite ever player, Dwayne De Rosario, that he couldn't come and play with this current team, because I think it would be incredible. But this is I think one of our golden eras, and if it is not necessarily ruined, but if it's like not properly used and we're not able to reach the potential that we have with the likes of Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Tajon Buchanan, then because of a federation, because of how our federation run, because of the shady things that are going on, and because managers have to rely on this kind of tactic to get the payday that they have, and players have to speak out, and there's this games have to be canceled because of negotiations. It would be heartbreaking as a fan, because we don't know when hopefully, because our soccer development program are improving, we will see more players like these, like Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David in the future. But it would still be something where it would be a bit of a waste if we don't take these players that we have and push for a Gold Cup, or push for Nations League win, or now with the news of Copa America. I'm not saying we're going to go and win Copa America, but go and face and give 90 minutes of hell to an Argentina, a Brazil, a Colombia, an Ecuador, to show what Canada can do. So I think that's what I initially thought. It was like a tactical ploy, and I felt frustrated because what does that reflect on Canada Soccer and like the federation and Canada Soccer in general, that this is sort of what we have to do. I also found it weird that it was one pretty reputable source, but it was just one source. Everyone was freaking out, and it was one singular source, and I was like, okay, let's wait for other sources, corroborations,
and
because this is how it works.
Nobody, especially on our end, knew anything about it.
Exactly. Like you hear people that have insiders in Canada Soccer and with connections, and they're like, no one knew. No one. This was completely out of the blue.
And with John Herdman being under contract, even if he had an exit clause, somebody at the CSA would have to be made aware. He can't just, like, managers can't just go and interview for other jobs. They typically have to get permission from their current employer to do so. So to me, like, when it came out that, like, everybody in Canada had no idea what was going on, I think at that point I realized, like, I don't know about what is this. And I agree with you, Felipe. Although it's weird that he would pick New Zealand, because it's not like it's the greatest job in the world, especially because he had flirtation from some clubs and some bigger nations in the past. But I wonder if he thought New Zealand is his easiest way to try and get a better deal with Canada, because obviously he has his previous relationship with New Zealand and he knows the people in their federation. Although it kind of does New Zealand dirty if they genuinely thought he was interested in the job. And clearly now he's come out and he said, no, I'm not really interested in it whatsoever. So I don't know if they'll be welcoming him back to New Zealand anytime soon, but I don't know if he'd ever want to go back and manage in New Zealand anyways, to be honest, but for club level and national league level and anyways. But we'll go on to our next piece of news here. And that is, it was leaked anyways, but out of Honduras. But Canada to play Honduras at BMO Field on March 28th. Paul, as a Southern Ontario resident, what is your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think the players have already sort of stated it, that based on where they are and playing, that it's just much easier to play at Toronto. So not necessarily that they don't want to. So fans, Vancouver,
don't
Edmonton,
take it personally.
Yeah, it's not.
Well,
it's
Edmonton
not
take it personally.
Yeah, it's nothing personal. It's not that they don't want it. It's Canada's the second largest country in the world. So the span of being able to travel to all those different places, and I think they have a game before they play that Honduras game. So to travel there
in Curacao.
Curacao. So
South America.
Yeah,
which is basically South America. Yeah.
Right. So South America, if they had gone somewhere, like, it just makes sense for the Central. So when they're ready to leave, that they're leaving from Toronto back. So that's the only reason why fans that. But I still, once again, and I think Felipe was speaking to it, is once again it has to be Honduras that leaks this out. Like, why is CSA? It's like so unbelievable. Apparently, they just fired the chief marketing officer, the CSA.
Yes.
So my thing is, with somebody was like, well, what did that person have to do anyways? Like, CSB already controls everything, so they don't have to do any marketing. But for me, I'm like, why does it always have to be like we have to hear from another source? Like, just come out. Like, it doesn't have to be a secret. Okay, so people could even know, okay, we have to get tickets. If there's other fans from other provinces that want to come, that they know ahead of time so they could plan. Why does it always have to be like some hush, like CIA, RCMP type, like, to find out that we're playing in Toronto?
Yeah.
To me, and that's the thing that, once again, the repeating common thing, that it's the CSA does not seem organized. And it's something, sorry, Felipe, I want to just go back one. Sorry, I apologize. I know we're running time. But I think he also, New Zealand, his son plays for the U20. So I think it was, I know a lot of people say it's not exciting, but once again, I do think it's a negotiation tactic. But he felt comfortable doing that because there's so many different factors in the play of him going there. But I just want to say that. But yeah, CSA, please get your stuff. Please get your stuff together, because it's becoming, it starts to become like very frustrating. And when you find out about the squad, every other squad is like 2-3 weeks out, and we're like, oh, a few days before we find out we're playing, we find out who the squad is. Like, it's ridiculous. But anyway, sorry, I'll come off my soapbox.
No, I don't think there's much more to add there. The only thing I'll slightly add is I don't know how much control CSA has over when they can announce it. It has to go through CONCACAF. And when I checked where we're playing, the Curacao match hasn't been announced yet.
Oh, it hasn't been?
No.
Oh, okay.
So it may, and I know how it works is the CSA lets CONCACAF know, then CONCACAF lets Honduras know, and then Honduras leaks it right away, it seems. and then Curacao leaked it previously. But as you said there, Paul, there's so much frustration with the CSA. They're just going to get lumped with it anyways, and they probably deserve that treatment because they, something we'll touch on a little bit later with the U17s, they had a friendly and nobody knew about it until after it happened, which is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I think that sums up the game. Obviously, I'll say it again, Canada will be playing Honduras at BMO Field on March 28th. I'm hoping to go once they actually announce it. Felipe, I'm going to come to you, and it's regarding a former player of yours, and that's Lucas Cavallini going to Mexican side Xolos. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. What do you think of this move for him? It's an important move for him.
Yes, I think it is. I think it is an important move for him in the stage of his career that he's at. Because he has Argentinian roots. He is fine playing in Latin countries, and he's shown that when he played in Mexico previously for Puebla. And I think that he is just trying to find that form that he had back in 2018 when he scored like 17 goals. And I think it's something that for him now, he came to Vancouver Whitecaps. It was like this. Finally, we have a Canadian striker. We have a Canadian DP. And he came. He was well paid, well compensated. But he didn't really find that form that he used to have. Now he's going back to Mexico, back to where he had success. And I think he's going to try to find that spark that he had previously at Puebla, now with Tijuana, with Xolos. And so I think it's something where he's a player that if this move doesn't go well, then I can see his career sort of starting to spiral a little bit. But if he does well in this move, then you never know where he might go next. He's not one to not travel, not to go to different places to play soccer. So I think, I wish him well. He was, I mean, at the very least entertaining. You never knew really what kind of Cavallini you were going to get. But he, at the end of the day, he is Canadian. He's part of the men's national team. So I will support him wherever he goes. I just hope he can find a bit of a more level head in Mexico than he did at his time at the Whitecaps.
I'll disagree. I think he needs to be the villain, and I think that's where he thrives. It's when he tries to be the hero or the savior, or he needs to be himself. And I don't know if he was able to do that at Vancouver, maybe because of the hype, him being Canadian coming to Canada. It just didn't seem to fit him. And his previous time in Mexico, excuse my language, he was a right bastard when he was there. And that's when he thrives, and that's his role. And I think maybe he'll be able to get away with that a little bit more in the Mexican League from the difference in the CONCACAF with regards to the Mexican refereeing compared to the MLS refereeing. But I think he just needs to be himself, because it just never worked, and Vancouver just never seemed to fit. I didn't want him to come to Toronto for the same reason, where I just don't know if this sort of environment fits him. I wish him all the best in Mexico with Xolos, and just be yourself, Lucas Cavallini. If for some reason you're listening to this, just be yourself there. Because if we're being honest, your national team future really depends on this move, because if it doesn't work, I think stage left. If it works, you'll still be in the picture 100%. We'll move on to some TFC news. So I'll come to you, Paul, and one of the worst kept secrets in the history of TFC, and that is Sean Johnson coming to TFC, officially announced. What was your reaction to this?
Yeah, just as you said, the worst kept secret. It was like it felt like it was months ago that we heard it.
Yeah, he visited Toronto like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, and it was just like, okay, he's coming. Well, we're not sure. It's just like, oh my gosh, just announce it. But yeah, exciting. I don't think we've had such a goalkeeper of that caliber since Julio Cesar. So yeah, it's exciting to see him sign with TFC. and I think it really helps to bolster the back line for sure. Definitely. I think there was a stat where he had like more clean sheets than we've had over the past year. Like it was some ridiculous number of clean sheets that he's had. So I'm comfortable and confident to feel that he'll be able to. My only issue is I haven't seen him play well. I'm trying to see. I'm trying to remember the games that I've seen New York play well. If he's really good playing out from the back, that's my only concern. If he can play out from the back, but outside of that, can he save? Does he make intelligent reads on the game? I have every confidence, and I think the one thing that I've heard repeatedly is that he's a great leader, and just hearing him speak. When I heard him speak, I was like, "Oh, okay." He does sound like he'll be the one that will help to gel everybody in the locker room and bring them together. And I think he needed that other voice. As much as Michael Bradley was there, the honest truth is his dad's the coach, right? And I think sometimes there might be, as much as you're human and you want to be a leader, I think sometimes that's in the back of your mind. So I think it's going to help to bring in that fresh voice to kind of help to really lead them definitely to the playoffs. Like there's no if, ands, or but. We're not even, that's not even a question if they're to make the playoffs or not. So I think it's a great signing for TFC.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to having him in. It'll be nice to finally have an above-average MLS goalkeeper. We had two of those last season. One was exorbitantly paid, and he was not able to perform as per his pay, which is unfortunate because Bono has done some great things for TFC in the past. Obviously, he is a MLS champion, but he was getting paid to be one of the top 5 keepers in MLS, and he was performing to an average MLS level, which means he was getting paid nearly double what he should have been paying, in my opinion. But yeah, very exciting signing. And thanks to Drake for the hookup. As long as it doesn't come with the Drake curse, we're good. So,
right.
Drake, don't come out and say anything about Sean Johnson. I don't want to hear you saying
don't wear a Sean Johnson jersey.
No, nothing. No. Just hang out with him and we're good. We're good. Just don't say anything. Don't bet on him. Nothing. So the last topic for us to discuss is obviously Canada's squad was announced for the U17 CONCACAF Championship, which starts in a week's time, February 11th, so next weekend. I think that's something that all of us footy fanatics will be excited about. How much coverage we're going to get on it, who knows? Because as I said, we played a friendly the other day and nobody knew about it. We were just told a friendly happened after the fact, which was great news. So, Felipe, like I know obviously with regards to our youth teams, especially of late, they have been underperforming. Perhaps we can say that. What are your expectations for the side?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit hard to properly predict how they're going to do because there's not too much coverage around these players. I think they called up 5 players that play outside of Canada, and there's a few names in there that are interesting, like Eric Pop, Ruben de Sá from Portugal, from Vitória. And so, these names are exciting to see that, we have a couple Canadians that are learning how to play professionally abroad, and we want to, how are they going to bring that into the team? But you don't really know exactly, especially when you can't see the games. And sure, they might say, "Oh, this was only friendly," but these friendlies are how we engage. These friendlies are how we engage how these players work, how they work together, how they play as a team, what do they bring from for the players that go abroad, from what do they bring to these local players. I know a majority of them are from TFC Academy. I think 4 are from Whitecaps. I know there's one from Sigma, which is nice to see. But these players have a great opportunity with this championship, where I think it's the 4 top teams get to go to the under-17 World Cup.
Yep.
Right.
and
Yes.
to have Canada be at yet another World Cup, even for the under 17s, would be an enormous opportunity, and it would actually show the leaps and bounds that we have had in youth development. So I think it's something where now Canada Soccer has to realize that us as fans, especially as super fans, we want to see these games. We want to see these players, these young up and comers, the next batch of superstars. We want to see them at their roots, and so I'm hoping that at this CONCACAF Championship, they're facing what is it, Trinidad, Barbados,
And the
and the United
US.
States.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's gonna
and the
be on
third
One
game.
Soccer.
Okay, fantastic. And
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's
that
the thing.
shows
It's
the
like
level
this-
of coverage. It's ridiculous.
there's so little coverage. But those are three tough teams, especially the U.S. And that being the third match is going to be one of the most critical ones, I think. I think it's a great opportunity, and I just hope that soccer fans now there is coverage. We tune in and we show that we want to keep seeing Canadian soccer across all levels, in the women's game, in the men's game, from the seniors all the way down to the under 17s and even more. I'm just hoping that we can show up and support, because these are the future. These players are the future, and I want to see them play well, learn how to play well, so that by the time that they're 18, 19, 20, they've had some good experience, they've had some good support, and they can show up to the national team and continue this new sort of dynasty of Canadian soccer.
Yeah. So to wrap us off, I'm going to come to you, Paul. As Felipe was saying, the coverage is not the greatest. So like something we should have done is perhaps done some player profiles and put that out on YouTube. A 5-minute video of saying what this is where the player's from and these are the youth clubs they played for, and show us some highlights just so we know who these players are. Because unless you're like a diehard footy fanatic, like you'll recognize some names, but besides that, it's like, I've never seen this person play in my life before. But my question to you, Paul, is obviously if we get knocked out by Mexico or the United States, I think we can all say that's acceptable. But if we were to get knocked out by a lesser nation, can we really blame these players? Because it's something we've really struggled with, and it's a big gripe I have with the CSA, is the lack of youth camps. Like, yes, the under-17s did have the youth camp in Mexico where they did play the 2 games against, was it Costa Rica and Mexico, I believe they played. But that was it.
Mexico killed them.
Yeah, Mexico killed them. But that was it. There was the 2 games, and then obviously this random unannounced friendly we had. Maybe we'll play another unannounced friendly in the coming days. Who knows? But like, if we were to get knocked out by like if we lose to like a Trinidad and Tobago or something like that, can we really blame these players?
You know what? I can't blame, to be honest, I can't blame the players. And I know, Chris, I think that's when we first started talking on Twitter. Was it the U20? The U20.
Yes.
It's to me, it's mind-boggling why we're just trying to hang on to the golden generation, as Felipe said, and hoping that we'll just automatically get these players again. Like, there needs to be. A lot of countries are stepping up now, so we now need to step up with our youth camps. I totally agree. There needs to be more youth camps. Even if you want it to be a local, and when I say local in terms of Canadian, and you can't get players 100%. From abroad, you need to start doing that. Not even for the players' sake, but also for the coaches' sake, because we know the U20. We went off on Bello. I think. And you know what? Maybe in fairness to him, maybe he didn't have enough time with the players. So I'm not going to fully blame him. I think they need a different coach, but I'm not going to totally blame him either. I think the coaching staff, everybody needs camps to kind of get familiar, to come up with better tactics, to feel comfortable. You can't wait last minute and throw things together and just have an expectation. And then when teams like Mexico and the US beat us, then we're just like, oh, well, yeah, they're better than us. Well, how did they become better than us? Like, to be honest with you, yes, Mexico has the raw talent,
Mhm.
but we should be investing money as much as Mexico. I feel like only, to be honest with you, like, so the resource that we have, it should really only be the US. That I'm talking about, not even from a player standpoint, but from the resources and the money that should be ahead of us. There is no excuse for us, like from the government right down, should be paying, into these youths. And another gripe that I had with a message, WhatsApp group that I was on is parents shouldn't be paying. Like it becomes this for lack of a better term, please forgive me, but it's hockey mentality. Like it's a different sport altogether. Like I don't feel that, like we need to find the right talent and nurture from the level. So we should be sending money right down to the grassroots level.
Yeah.
Chris, you know about it because you're part of the grassroots level in Niagara. Like these are things that we
There's no funding.
Yeah, like we need to be doing that. We're not doing that enough. It's just like it's like happenstance, and then we complain, oh, we don't have money. CSA is like, oh, we don't have money. But how are you trying to generate money? Like, what are you trying to do so that we could continue to grow the sport? Because the reality is, not a lot of parents have the money for hockey, and we've seen a lot of immigrants that are coming to Canada that it's much easier, and they understand, they know more football. It's a global sport. So why not invest the money into it? I can guarantee you, you'll see the rewards on all levels.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we need to do better with it. We definitely need to do better with the camps if we want to see this sport grow. And I think it benefits not just the diehard soccer/football fans, but I think it benefits everyone, even the government, when you start to do this.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you've touched on some deep topics there, Paul.
Sorry.
But no. Get your frustration out there. That's what the channel's there for. But yeah, I agree. Hockey, I think hockey is definitely a privileged sport. If I'm being honest, coming here as an immigrant, like it's sort of a sport for the rich. But soccer is not. Soccer is a working man's sport, and that's why it's able to thrive all across the world, because you need minimalistic things to play it. And yeah, you're right. We definitely need to fund programs more, 100%. But I think that's going to wrap it up for us this week. Next week, we'll hopefully be doing a deep dive on the Canadian women's national team as they head into the She Believes Cup. Next week's episode will have to be on Saturday because next weekend is the Super Bowl, next week Sunday, and I am a Kansas City Chiefs fan, so I will be a little bit preoccupied that day. Around this time, I'll be watching the game, and before it, I'll probably be knee deep in some kind of liquor. I am sure of it, as I have a full day plan of Manchester United in the morning, and then getting ready for the Super Bowl in the evening. So we'll probably be doing next week Saturday. The time I will confirm, but I'll get that information out there as soon as possible. I want to thank Paul and Felipe for joining me here today. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, so thank you very much. And once again, everybody's links are in the description below, so make sure you check it out. And thank you to the viewers for joining us here today. We had a lot of people listening in live, which is great, more than we've had before. I think that's the Felipe pull.
Yes, it is.
I might have told a couple people.
So thank you very much for listening, and everybody who's watching this afterwards, thank you very much. Obviously, we do this to have a general chat, but also to enlighten people with the information we're able to give them, as well as a little bit of entertainment. But yeah, this has been Canadian Footy Fan Channel, content for fans, by fans. A reminder to smash the like and subscribe buttons. I have been your host, Chris, signing out.